Welcome back to Sunday Night Spookies, the podcast dedicated to exploring the mysterious and the spooky unknown. My name is Lex.
And I'm Sarah.
And this is episode 5, The Possession of Anneliese Michel.
So this is not a super well-known story, but it was the inspiration for a popular movie.
So the story of Anneliese Michel inspired the film The Exorcism of Emily Rose that was released in 2005. That movie is very loosely based on Anneliese Michel's story and was also set in modern day America, which is not where Anneliese Michel is from.
So Anneliese Michel was born on September 21st, 1952 in West Germany to a very Roman Catholic family. She had 3 sisters. And again, the family was very religious. They attended mass twice a week. Like, even all of her classmates said she was weirdly religious, like very religious. Other than that, she was a pretty normal kid. There was no evidence or articles that claims weird or anything abnormal about her or the family, other than they were very religious. When Anneliese was 16, she suffered a fairly large seizure. During the seizure, she had, quote, blacked out, and friends had described her as being in a trance-like state, just wandering around the school.
Okay.
Which, keep that in mind, because it'll come up later, but doesn't sound like seizure-like behavior.
Not to me, it does not.
And I don't know very much about seizures. I've never witnessed one in person.
I have.
Okay.
Doesn't look like that.
But usually when I think of seizures, I think of seizing or convulsions or like rigidity. I don't think I'm just gonna wander around.
I know you can have like
functional seizures.
I don't even know if that's, I mean, yeah, like I've seen on TV shows where like people will have a seizure and it's like just their eyes moving, but they're like just sitting there. But I've never seen one where they're walking around, but maybe.
Yeah, I've never heard of that happening. A year later, when she was 17, she suffered another seizure. This time, this was convulsions. The typical, like I said, convulsions, shaking, eyes moving seizure. Mm-hmm. That time, she was taken to see a neurologist. The time before that, they didn't really do anything. They just thought it was like a one-off seizure, which is kind of alarming. I think if anybody has one seizure, you should probably take them to go get looked at.
Yeah, I agree.
So she went to go see a neurologist, and he diagnosed her with temporal lobe epilepsy. And Anneliese experienced, again, seizures, loss of memory, and visual and auditory hallucinations, she told this neurologist.
Okay.
It's important to note that this condition, the temporal lobe epilepsy, can also cause Schwind syndrome, which is a very weird word. And that syndrome is related to hyperreligiosity, which is an actual psychiatric disturbance in which a person experiences intense religious beliefs or episodes that interfere with normal function. And that syndrome, the hyperreligiosity, such a hard word to say, that can occur with a lot of different psychiatric disorders, epilepsy, and then frontal temporal lobe degeneration. Anything to do with the frontal lobe, that could happen with that Schwind syndrome. Important to note for later. After she got this diagnosis, Anneliese started taking medication to treat her condition, as most people with epilepsy do. And then she went on and had a fairly normal life after that. Once she was diagnosed and was put on medication, everything seemed pretty normal. She went on, enrolled in college, and everything was fine. As the year progressed, after she enrolled in college, her medication had stopped working, and her condition was getting worse. So it was at this time that Anneliese just came to the conclusion that she was not epileptic, but she was in fact possessed by demons, and that medication would never help her. She did continue to take it, though. That's another thing I wanted to, important notice. Mm-hmm. She, throughout this whole story, never once stopped taking that medication. It was never, at least that I couldn't find.
Right.
Every source that I saw said that she took it the entire time. And nothing that I read said that it was ever changed or reevaluated or the doses were reevaluated. Nothing. It was just, she was giving that one dose, the second seizure she had, and that's what she took. She claimed to see the devil's face wherever she went and started to hear demons telling her that she would rot in hell and that she was damned.
Okay.
Little alarming, if you ask me. Mm-hmm. Throughout this time, she started praying. And when I mean praying, I mean hours upon hours upon hours upon hours of, intense
Here's the thing.
praying.
What would you do if you were hearing demons telling you that you were going to go to hell?
I don't know if I would pray.
Well, maybe not you, but someone would.
Yeah. I mean, I guess most people, if they really thought they were possessed by the devil, would pray. I think that's something that they would do. Me, I think I would just go see a doctor.
True
hey, I'm hearing things. Please help.
Right. Fix me.
So again, she started praying very frequently, but it did not help. According to Anneliese, the praying did absolutely nothing to stop the demons. So at this point, she started to be very desperate. She started seeking out help in priests and clergy and all these people, and nobody would help her. They turned her away, suggesting that she go see medical attention, that she needed medical attention and not the church's interference at this point, or that they needed permission from a higher bishop to actually help with the situation. But the most popular answer was, please go see a doctor. It was at this point that she was rejected a few times that her delusions and hallucinations became very extreme. So after she was rejected, stuff started really picking up. She started to act out increasingly strange acts and compulsions, such as continually ripping off her clothes, like wouldn't stay clothed, just streaking. Doing 400 squats a day. I don't know why. I couldn't find the reason behind the squats. But that I read that a lot. That was one thing that was like,
so like, were they intentionally, like she was intentionally trying to squat?
Yeah, like the exercise.
Like for exercise, or was she just like doing a movement that resembled squats?
I don't know. Everyone just described it as squats. She would count them though. It was exactly 400.
Is it a wrong time to make a joke?
No.
Okay. If I have a rock hard ass, these demons can't get me.
There's never a wrong time to make a dark humor joke. Let's be honest.
Like that's all I could think of. Like, why do squats?
Listen, I don't know if anything can get me to do 400 squats a day.
I don't think I could.
I know I can't.
No, here's the thing. I bet you that I could. I would not stand the next day.
Me either.
Or the next day, or the next day.
Okay, so ripping off all her clothes, 400 squats. She would continuously crawl under furniture and just kind of crawl around, which we're laughing because like the image sounds funny, like in your head. I think of like not a grown woman, but
I mean, basically she's in college.
Yeah, 18-year-old woman just kind of scuttling around under furniture, barking like a dog, eating spiders and coal. And
that makes my teeth hurt.
Yeah, when I said strange acts, strange I think is a bit loose for these. This one's a little bit graphic, so graphic warning in the next like 10 seconds. I'm sorry. She would pee on the floor and then lick it off the ground. Oh. I'm so sorry.
You've already told me that, and I already like it's still affecting me in the same exact way.
It's disgusting. Gross. And she would beat and bite other family members, constantly screaming, destroying religious memorabilia. And I saved this one for last, just for you. She would bite heads off birds.
Well, it was okay for Ozzy Osbourne to do it.
No, it was bats. The rumor was he bit bats.
That was a dove.
Was it?
I don't know. Whatever.
I heard it was bats. I should know this. So, after a little bit of all of this
mayhem,
loosely, the family was desperate now. First, Anneliese was desperate, and now the family. I was laughing because the look that you just gave me. I wish people could see it.
What was really the final straw? You know what I mean? Was it the birds?
Was it in that order? Was it birds?
Was it the birds? Was it the peeing on the floor and licking it? Was it? I just want to know what the last straw was. What was the final straw? Okay.
The look was like.
That was the final. What was Jesus?
So, like I said, the family was desperate, and now the actual family believed that she was indeed possessed by demons. This was like among the family. This was a common belief. And then her and her mother finally found a priest that believed Anneliese, that yes, you are in fact possessed. I believe you. Instead of just saying, please go get medical attention.
Yeah.
So this priest's name was Ernst Alt. That's a name if I ever read one. And Anneliese wrote to him at one point saying, quote, I am nothing. Everything about me is vanity. What should I do? I have to improve. You pray for me. End quote. And this was like a common thing. She would like write notes to him. Another one that she said was, quote, I want to suffer for other people, but this is just so cruel. End quote. So going back to everyone calling her very hyper religious, this kind of sounds like some of those people that want to take on people's sins.
Yeah.
Like, I am so selfless that I'm willing to take on, like, I'm going to suffer if everyone can go to heaven type thing.
Right.
Like, I'm going to take on your sins so that you can have a better life type thing.
Sure.
After this, Alt then went to petition the local bishop, Josef Stangl. It's a German name. I'm probably not pronouncing it right. I'm so sorry. Who then went and got Arnold Renz, another priest, to help perform the exorcism. because that's what they thought that she needed. She needed this exorcism. But they had very specific instructions, which I find very weird. The bishop told these two priests, Arnold and Ernst, that they had to complete the exorcisms in 100% secrecy. None of the other church members could know, the public couldn't know, nobody outside of the family and these three people, the bishop and the two priests, could know that they were performing exorcisms.
Interesting.
Which to me sounds like you're probably not supposed to be doing exorcisms. Like if the bishop was like, you have to do this in such secrecy.
Right.
It's like, are you really trained to do the exorcism?
Right.
Because I know you have to be like, there's like classes in schools for that, that deal with demonology and
right. Why was it so secret?
Yeah. So I just thought that was very weird that was like a rule for them. It's also, I think, important to note here that even though movies and pop culture make it seem that exorcisms are super common, like when a member of the church starts having weird things, it's always, exorcism.
Right.
That's not how it goes. They were hardly performed they were like in the 1800s or earlier. Yes, that was like a thing that they did. But in the recent years, like in this time frame, 50s and 60s, it wasn't really done. However, books and movies like The Exorcist, like the original The Exorcist movie, was released in the early 70s, and that made the idea of exorcisms more popular. Okay. Anneliese would have seen The Exorcist or heard about it or read the book or whatever. This would have been a thing that she knew about, this movie, whatever, this book. So after the bishop approved their request and said that they had to do this exorcism in complete secrecy, the next 10 months were just gruesome for Anneliese. They conducted 67 exorcisms.
Yikes.
67. And most of them lasting up to 4 hours long. And she would be restrained for those full 4 hours. Like she would be held down and restrained because she was a danger to herself and others.
It's more than one a week.
Yeah. 67. Through these events and all these exorcisms and the 10 months that she spent with these priests, Anneliese revealed that she was possessed by 6 specific demons. Now, if you don't like the names of demons, or some of these aren't traditional demons, but if you are sensitive to that or you don't want to hear them, skip ahead 30 seconds. Full disclosure. Yeah. I will be saying the names of these. So she revealed that she was possessed by Lucifer himself, Cain, Judas Iscariot.
That's how I would say it.
I don't know how I'm saying that. I don't know what's right. Which he was one of the original 12 apostles of Jesus Christ, but betrayed Jesus. Adolf Hitler, the one and only, Nero, who was a Roman emperor, and Fleischmann.
Okay.
I don't know who that is.
Me either.
Or no, I don't know who that is. Fleischmann. I want to say it's Fleischmann.
Is it E-I or I-E?
E-I. Fleischmann.
It's the second letter if it's German.
Okay. And Fleischmann, who was said to be a disgraced priest. Okay. I'm sure if I looked into it, I could find why he was disgraced, but he was disgraced. It was said that all of these spirits would take power over Anneliese's body, and she would communicate with different growls and noises when she wasn't, quote, Anneliese, when one of these demons had taken over. That's how they knew. She had prayed so much, like I said, she spent hours praying, that always on her knees, that she broke the bones in her knees and ripped the tendons in her kneecaps. Because she would, I don't know how long do you have to spend on your knees?
A really long time.
Or are you like throwing yourself on your knees to pray in desperation?
Maybe.
Like you gotta be doing something.
That's the only way that I can imagine doing that.
Yeah, like I mean that much damage.
Yeah.
Anneliese was more often than not, like I said, restrained during these exorcisms, which isn't good for, like your muscles and your bone health. Like degeneration of your muscles and bones is a huge problem. See the Penhurst episode, right? Because that was one of the things we talked about. Or over the 10 months, she slowly stopped eating and drinking, claiming that the demons would not allow her to eat or drink. And whenever she did, she would vomit. She would be sick. She couldn't eat, couldn't drink. Finally, on July 1st, 1976, Anneliese Michel passed away. She lost her fight with these demons. Very sad. She was very young. But right before her death, she would talk about dying to atone for the wayward youth of the day and the apostate priests of the modern church. That was something that it was a quote from her that she would say or write down in the last few days that she was alive. As you can imagine, the death of Anneliese was a bit controversial. And it became a nationwide sensation in Germany. And it brought a ton of attention to the parents and the priests that were involved. Not shockingly. So much so that there was a series of trials involved.
Yes, the trial started in 1976 when Michel's parents and the two priests, Ernst Alt and Arnold Renz, were charged with negligent homicide.
Ooh.
And they were charged with negligent homicide because Anneliese Michel died of malnutrition and dehydration. And because she really wasn't in any position to be caring for herself.
Yeah.
The people around her needed to be caring for her.
Yeah.
And they obviously were not.
I don't know if you guys know about like the Mental Health Act. I don't know if it's called that, but I don't know if it was in place in Germany, but there's a thing nowadays where if you're a severe danger to yourself or others, or you can't take care of yourself, you can be placed in care by law.
Yeah.
And you can't fight against that. And I feel like, again, I don't know if that was a thing in Germany, but it should have been with
Maybe
her.
not then yet.
Maybe not then. Yeah, it was a little early, but.
Yeah. And it was negligent homicide because they were negligent, leading to her homicide. After the investigation, the state prosecutor maintained that Michel's death could have been prevented even 1 week before she died. So had they really picked up the pace, fed her a little bit, gave her some water, took care of her, she probably would have lived.
Yeah.
Anneliese Michel's parents were defended by Erich Schmidt-Leichner, hope I said that right, whose services were sponsored by the church.
Oh.
So the church paid for her parents' lawyer to defend her.
Which is weird because the church was so against it in the beginning, against her getting help.
Yeah.
Because they all said, please seek medical attention.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting? So I don't know if her parents just like, they really liked her parents and they wanted to help them or what.
Or the church didn't want a bad rap.
Maybe. Who knows? Their actual trial started on March 30th, 1978. So like a year and a half, couple years later.
That's late.
Yeah. And like you said, was of the utmost public interest.
Oh, yes.
People were very interested in it. During the trial, doctors testified that Anneliese was not possessed, stating that her actions were a psychological effect because of her strict religious upbringing and her epilepsy. Weird. That's what they had said before. The priest, Ernst Alt, said in court that Anneliese, quote, didn't look like an epileptic, unquote.
How do you look like an
epileptic?
epileptic?
I don't think you can look like an epileptic. I think you just
it's
are
not
one
a
or you're not.
deformity. It's just a condition.
Right. The doctor, Richard Roth, who was asked for medical help by the priest Ernst Alt, allegedly told her during the exorcism that, quote, there is no injection against the devil, Anneliese, unquote.
Okay. That's...
So there's like a weird, to me that sounds like there's like a weird connection between the priest and this doctor, because that's a different doctor than the one who said she wasn't possessed. It's one that the priest requested to be there.
Yes.
There's no injection against the devil, Anneliese.
That's intense. I think we were just talking about this earlier, like if you have an oath to take, like a doctor, doctors have to take oaths. I feel like that's going against your oath. You see this girl dying of malnutrition.
You're not even helping her.
Or struggling at the very least, right? We don't even know if she was visibly dying of malnutrition at that point.
Right.
You have a job to do, man, regardless of your religious belief.
Do it.
Yeah.
Right. The parents' attorney said that the exorcism was legal and that the German Constitution protected citizens in the unrestricted exercise of their religious beliefs.
I don't know if that involves killing somebody, though. Or doing nothing to stop the passing away of.
Right. Just, it's iffy. It's a little bit of gray area there. Her parents came before the court and even used a recording of the exorcism to try to justify their actions. And the defense claimed that these played the sound of demons arguing, and that was like their way to assert the claim that she was possessed. I don't know if we could find those. I wonder if we could find those.
I'm gonna look it up.
Because if we could find them, we could put it on Instagram. So stay tuned. We'll see.
Yeah, we're gonna look it up right now.
Hopefully we can find it. So like you said, the demons identify themselves as... No need to read them again if you were already listening, because we don't need to put that back out in the universe.
Yeah.
But Ernst Alt and Arnold Renz insisted that the only reason Anneliese was freed from the demon's grasp is because of the exorcism. Right?
I don't think she was ever
just
freed.
Before her death, supposedly. That's what they say.
Of
just
course,
before her death, they are the reason that she was able to get away from that.
Or she was so freaking sick that she just couldn't fight it anymore.
The 2 priests were found guilty of manslaughter resulting from negligence and were sentenced to 6 months in jail, which was later
6 months?
Which was later suspended.
What?
And 3 years of probation. So they only did 3 years of probation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
The parents were exempted from any punishment because they had, quote, suffered enough, unquote, which is a criteria for sentencing in German law. So basically the German, I don't know if that's like that now, right? But in 78, German law had like a little sub thing.
Suffered enough.
A little sub law that said like, if you suffered enough, you don't have to.
I only watched my daughter die over 10 months and didn't do anything about it.
Right. But this punishment
Medically. They did exorcisms, whatever.
Right. This punishment was worse than what the defense had asked for because they asked for a fine and nothing else for the priests.
Oh, come on.
Yeah. After the trial, the parents asked authorities for permission to exhume the remains of their daughter. If you don't know what exhume, I assume people know what exhume means, but if you don't, it basically means to dig up the coffin and to take up the body of a dead person.
Yeah, like dig up the coffin, take the body out of the coffin, and examine it for some purpose.
Right. So
why did they want to do that?
Well, because they wanted to exhume their daughter because she had been, quote unquote, hastily buried in a cheap coffin. Apparently they rushed to bury her. That's it. They just wanted to switch out her coffin.
You rushed to bury her. Mm-hmm. That seems suspicious to me.
Yes. Well, so they replaced her coffin with a new oak coffin lined with tin. And I Googled the tin thing. I have not figured it out. But I did find out that Princess Diana's coffin and like royalty coffins are lined in lead to preserve the remains. It's not going to preserve, like, it's not going to be like you could dig her up in 50 years and she'll still look how she looks. It's supposed to really, really slow down the decomposition process. But tin,
you're dead.
I don't understand.
Why?
For royalty, I guess, okay.
I don't get that because you're going to decay anyway. And
Right.
we're not, like, displaying you. Like, it's not a glass coffin with lead in it.
Right. So I don't know why they chose tin, because tin's kind of a cheap metal anyway, I
So
thought.
maybe it's like a cheap... We're just going to half-ass this one.
Right. Who knows?
Or maybe in some, like, belief or something, the tin would, stop the demons from coming out, like, if she was still possessed.
Maybe. I looked it up and nothing said anything.
I know, like, in Romania and stuff, I've watched, like, TV episodes where because they believe in vampires over there. A lot of people still believe in vampires. And you have to do something to the coffin or to the dead body to prevent the vampire's soul from escaping and infecting somebody else.
Sure.
So maybe it's like that.
Yeah.
That's sidetracked, sorry.
It's fine. I couldn't find anything except for lead lined.
Okay, well.
So who knows? Who knows what they were doing?
It's a weird thing.
They obviously didn't know what the heck they were doing anyway.
Yeah.
So whatever.
Clearly.
So after this case, the number of sanctioned exorcism decreased. Imagine that. This is just like a fun fact. On June 6th of 2013, a fire broke out in the house where Anneliese Michel lived.
Ooh.
Police called it arson, but some locals attributed it to the exorcism.
It's 2013. It
was many years later.
Very many
so
years.
I don't really know. Maybe they said it was arson, so somebody intentionally set the house on fire.
Yeah.
And that movie that we were talking about, The Exorcism of Emily Rose, came out in 2005, we said. So maybe somebody just was like, oh, this is what the movie's based on. Let's go mess
Burn
something
this
up
house
or
down.
something. Who knows?
Weird.
So there's some theories because maybe she was possessed, but also maybe not.
Maybe not.
So we know she had temporal lobe epilepsy.
Yeah, that was confirmed by a doctor who knew what he was doing.
Right. And like her hyper religiosity could be linked to that. But we also don't really understand why she was possessed or acting possessed.
Yeah.
You know? So we've got a couple of theories.
Because epilepsy has symptoms, right? But not biting heads off birds symptoms.
Right. We don't...
I would imagine. I don't know for sure.
Right.
I'm not a medical doctor.
Right.
However...
So some people think that maybe she suffered from schizophrenia as well as temporal lobe epilepsy. That could account for, if it was bad enough, probably quite a few of her symptoms. I don't know about biting the head off bird.
I think it would kind of attest for the different demons.
Yeah.
Like if you have schizophrenia, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. I think that's still kind of a stretch.
Yeah. So...
Because I don't want to, we're obviously not trying to demonize schizophrenia. That's not what we're... Or any mental illness for that matter.
Right.
But these are just the theories that people have.
Yes. Another theory is, I'm going to probably like butcher this health condition, but another theory is that she had pyroluria.
Okay, what's that?
It's a genetic condition in which an individual produces an abnormally large number of pyrroles.
What are pyrroles?
Good question. Affected individuals may have 5 to 10 more pyrroles than are usually produced. Normally excreted in the urine, a pyrrole is a byproduct of hemoglobin synthesis and has no known function in the body.
Weird.
Yeah. Hemoglobin, of course, is the molecule that carries oxygen in the blood. Pyrroles have an affinity for aldehydes, including vitamin B6 and zinc, binding to them in large numbers. They then are excreted in the urine, meaning that the zinc and vitamin B6 nutrients are no longer available for their usual biological roles. So basically, pyroluria means you don't have the zinc and vitamin B6 that you need.
And you can't absorb them because the pyrroles are keeping them from your body.
Right. So you're like severely deficient in those two things.
Okay. So how does that...
So apparently...
It's a demonic possession.
Right. According to certain experts, such disorder can, among other things, impair functioning of the brain because it binds with those things that are essential.
Yep.
B6 and zinc are essential for brain function.
Yes, very much so.
If untreated, pyroluria can lead to depression, anxiety, aggressive behavior, seizures, hallucinations, cognitive impairment, possibly even full-blown schizophrenia and psychosis.
Oh.
Since that disorder wasn't well known or discussed back in the 60s and 70s, there's not really any like medical examinations or blood tests that could like
well, because they wouldn't have been
pinpoint
looking
it.
For that either.
Right.
But it sure sounds very similar.
Right. And they said that it wouldn't cause like in like a brain scan, you wouldn't be able to see like the damage from the lack of B6 and zinc.
Interesting.
Which would explain why scanning her brain showed no abnormalities.
Which, yeah.
So it's a genetic condition, and the symptoms of pyroluria can be activated by stress.
Okay.
Anneliese was 16 when she had her first seizure.
Yes.
Puberty was confusing and it's stressful. And it's even more stressful if you're religious.
Yes. Puberty is very stressful when you're religious. Don't know if you guys know that, but...
Her symptoms also got worse after she enrolled in the university, which is also very stressful.
Yeah, can attest to that.
And the onset of schizophrenia and also possibly late onset epilepsy can be set off by stress.
A lot of psychological disorders can be like flipped a switch on just by like something stressful.
And schizophrenia, a lot of times people with schizophrenia aren't kids. They're usually like late teens, early 20s, and that kind of lines up too.
Yeah. I've known a few people with schizophrenia and they're like, they weren't diagnosed until later in life.
So you mentioned Anneliese Michel had started a drug.
And she kept taking it, as far as I could tell, throughout the whole event.
Yeah. So I have it listed as Tegretol. We're just going to go with that. Or carbamazepine.
Okay. Never heard of it.
Carbamazepine. Yeah, I think I said that right. According to the physician's desk reference, it, quote, should not be prescribed to women of childbearing age due to its dangerous effect on red blood cells.
Hello.
Which is interesting because you know what else has dangerous effect or has something to do with red blood cells?
Your pyroluria.
Pyroluria.
Pyroluria. That's what I want.
She took this medicine frequently.
Yeah, for the whole
until she was unable to swallow. So it was like right before she died.
Right before her death, yeah.
Unfortunately, there's not any information about the Michel family history, like their health history. So because it's genetic,
we don't know.
We don't know that she had that, but there's no way to look at her family history to see if her parents had it, to see if she would be likely to have it.
Especially because, again, they weren't looking for stuff like that back then.
Right, and they would have had symptoms, this says. But also, schizophrenia and epilepsy can also be hereditary.
But they also, the symptoms, I'm assuming, can be either extremely severe or very mild.
Yeah, it could be mental or physical, and it could be something small. Who knows? Like maybe her mom and dad were eating more zinc-filled foods or something. Who knows?
Right.
You know? Just interesting.
Interesting. I am hard-pressed to think that she was possessed.
Yeah.
That's a bold statement. However, I think, and there's a lot of factors, because the priests were supposed to do it under complete secrecy, which gives me the feeling that they weren't really trained. So she really was possessed. Then maybe they did it wrong and they couldn't help her and she died. And there's been people that have passed away supposedly due to demon possession or exorcisms or become
botched exorcism.
Yeah, or became very sick because of an exorcism. But the fact that she was seen by a doctor before all of this happened and was diagnosed with epilepsy, which she was having seizures. So at first glance, you'd think, yeah, that makes sense. Epilepsy, seizures, But the fact that it was the early 70s and medical stuff was not nearly as well as we know it today,
Right.
I don't know.
The pyroluria is looking pretty good on the...
Yeah, well, and the fact that if you're, like, to me, I'm not hyper-religious. No. Never have I ever been.
Me either.
So thinking, genuinely believing that my daughter is possessed, I don't have any kids, for the record, but if I did, I think if my child was dying of malnutrition and licking her own urine off the ground and biting heads off animals, I would seek to put her in a care facility. Like, yes. I wouldn't just sit back and watch the priest because I'm like, yep, this is definitely the work of a demon.
Right.
Like, she's dying. And it was, like, I can post some pictures of her as well. But the few weeks leading up to her death, it was very clear that this woman was ill, very ill. And I don't think I could look at my daughter who looked like that and think, no, it's a demon.
She's fine. Yeah, we'll figure this out.
Right. Put that girl in a hospital and hook her up to a feeding tube. Like, right. You know what I mean? Something, like, intervention. Yeah. I don't know. And of course, I don't know the history of the Michel family. Like you said, we don't know what kind of people they were. All we know is that they were very religious, which a lot of really bad people are really religious.
Facts.
So I don't know.
Big facts.
I don't know if this is a way to like get rid of their crazy kid. Like they knew that she was going to eventually die, so let's just let it go. Like we'll get away with it.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I'm not.
Or if they were just actually super delusional.
Oh yeah. Or if they were just super delusional. I'm not trying to say anything bad about the family.
We don't know them.
But
yeah,
we have to speculate.
Yeah. I think. Well, because the one theory is that she had her temporal lobe epilepsy and schizophrenia. I think, but then it also said that pyroluria could cause schizophrenia.
Right.
And so I just, that seems like the most...
The fact that all of those conditions... Yeah, the fact that all of those conditions you talked about were kind of related in some form or another makes me think it was one of the conditions that led to another thing that led to another thing.
Because really, psychosis is the only condition that could make you bite the head off of a bird and pee, lick up your own pee. It really is. Like, it's like, I don't think schizophrenia.
And I'm not laughing because it's funny. I'm laughing because it's uncomfortable. Like, it's a defense mechanism.
Yeah. I mean, like, I can't, like, schizophrenia is not going to make you do that. Schizophrenia could definitely account for some of the other behaviors.
But like I said, I've known people that have schizophrenia and other various quote unquote severe mental disorders, and they don't act like that.
Right.
And maybe it's because that we know a lot more than they did, and they're, medicated and seeing therapists. And
she wasn't being medicated for that.
No.
As far as we know.
Yeah.
As far as we know, she was only being medicated for the epilepsy, right?
Yeah.
What was for?
And yeah, like I said, the people I've known with schizophrenia have been well taken care of and are getting the proper medical attention they need, whatever degree it is. I don't know. I'm like I said, I have a hard time believing that it was demons and not just a
mixture of medical illness.
Yeah, I am much more inclined to believe that it was that than Adolf Hitler and some pals.
Yeah. So we found some audio recordings. Maybe we'll try to see if we can use it. We'll do our best. If not, we can direct you.
Yeah, if not, we'll link the YouTube videos to the audio recordings that supposedly were played in court.
Yeah.
And it's so hard to hear, but you can kind of hear the priest in the background, and then you can hear her yelling and growling and snarling. It sounds terrible. Like,
it really does sound like a possession, to be fair.
Yeah, listening to it, it made my throat hurt. Like, as a singer, like, listening to her
vocal cords just, like, ripping apart.
Yeah, legitimately, it made my throat hurt. But then again, if you are in a state of psychosis or a state of complete unease, just distress, you could be screaming and making weird noises.
Yeah, that's true.
I know in my panic attacks, I've had some weird screams.
That's fine. I get it.
So, I don't know. I don't think it was the demons. Sorry about it.
So let us know what you think. Do you think that Anneliese Michel was possessed?
And have you seen the movie? Because neither of us have seen the movie.
No, I haven't seen it. Exorcism movies freak me out. But if you think she was possessed or you think she had pyroluria, let us know. We want to know about it. You can reach out to us on any of our social media sites, and there is many. You can find us on Instagram at Sunday Night Spookies, on Twitter at Sunday Spookies, on Facebook at the Sunday Night Spookies Podcast, on TikTok at Sunday Night Spookies, and on YouTube now at Sunday Night Spookies.
Shocker. It's all
The only one that's different
is Twitter.
Because I don't even know why. Too long?
I think it was too long.
Too long. Okay.
Man. Anyway, we also have some affiliate links in the description box. They are for Buzzsprout, Instacart, and some of the tools that we use in our investigations. They are affiliate links, so if you click on them and purchase any good or service from our links, we do get a small kickback from that. We also have a support the show link. We are two college girls who are struggle bussing, especially when it comes to running a podcast that does investigations. So paying for hotels, equipment, all this kind of stuff can get kind of pricey. So any donation you guys send our way goes right back into making more and better content for you. Even just listening to the show and leaving a 5-star rating on Apple Podcast specifically, that helps us rise through the ranks quickly.
Yes.
And gets us out there. It's the iTunes weird algorithm. If you give it, it doesn't even matter what you say. If you just hit the 5-star button, that's good on our part.
Yeah.
So like I said, anything is greatly appreciated.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Sunday Night Spookies.
Join us next week for a Valentine's Day special episode. Ooh.
New episodes are released every Sunday evening. Thanks so much for listening, and as always, stay spooky.